Hello, I'm Roxanne, and here we are for an eco-friendly landscape talk I'm having with Fay Milton and Claire O'Neill. Hello, I hope you're okay. I'm just gonna introduce them really quick, and then they are gonna explain where they come from, what they do, and then we will talk a little bit. What do you think? Maybe we should start with Claire. Tell us where you come from.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us as well. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've been really excited about joining this session, actually, just because it's such a rock star lineup with you guys. So, my name's Claire O'Neill, and I'm the founder of A Greener Festival, otherwise known as AGF. And it's a not for profit organisation that for the last 15 years has been working with festivals and in more recent years with tours, arenas, venues all around the world to help them to be more sustainable, essentially. In the meantime, I also became an aerial circus performer. So for the last 10 years, I've been traveling around with big productions doing that kind of work, which has given a bit of insight into the behind the scenes amount of mess that we can make when we don't take care. So that's a very brief nutshell. I can go into more details.
Yeah, we are gonna go into more details. But now, Faye, what do you can explain about your project? Like, you're co-founder of a Music Declares Emergency. What could you explain about that?
Wow, where do I start? Well, thanks for having me here, and it's great to see Claire on the panel as well. We know each other, so it's nice to see friendly faces all around. So, Music Declares Emergency launched in 2019 as a response to the climate emergency and this real feeling of having to act immediately. And we realised the power that music could have to be part of telling that story, encouraging people to get involved with, say, climate activism, but it can also be really powerful to shift culture in the right direction. So it was quite a lot of music industry people who were involved with Extinction Rebellion and Culture Declares Emergency. So there was all this stuff happening, and we somehow found each other and launched in 2019. So we've been going since then. And then before that, I'm still a musician. I played drums in a band called Savages, and now I'm working on a different project. So it's still doing that in the background somewhere.
Well, these projects are just amazing because you actually took activism and put it on like music industry, which is a very big industry with really big platforms, but it hasn't really has like a real activism way into the world. Like, you hear music industry and you don't relate to activism at all, because we have like really big concerts that we're used to like reach people from certain points, like with problems, okay, but not with and climate emergency that we live now. So my very big first question is, how do you engage people? Because you hear music and you want to like you want to have fun listening to music, but you don't really want to be an activist while listening to music, but you are engaging people to actually being invested in fighting against this climate emergency. So how do you do it? Oh my god, that's a huge question.
Shall I start with this?
If you want to.
I think it's a big question. It's a huge. It's like the big question over everything that we're doing. But I think I would say that you can listen to music and it makes you feel a certain way. For example, if we take Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name, you hear that song, it makes you feel a certain way. For the people who enjoy that song and find it inspiring, but it will make you want to fight the system just by listening to it. And it can make your body language feel strong. It can make your mind feel strong. So it can really build that kind of sense of purpose. And also you feel like these dudes are on your side. They've got their guitars. You're not alone. It can really help build that. And then on the other end, there's much softer music that can make you really sort of appreciate nature. We did a project using the song What a Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong song. and that's very emotional. It can make you really look outside and see what a beautiful world we have and feel like a much more sort of peaceful but still a really strong need to protect it. So I would say music can just by being there, just by having emotive qualities, can inspire activism in all sorts of different ways. How do you get people out onto the streets to protest? I think that's a specific question, but music can obviously help there as well. In the Extinction Rebellion, I think it was 3 years ago now, in April, in London, where they shut down London. It's this really powerful moment. And one of the peaks of that were when Massive Attack came and played, and there was this euphoria. People just felt this togetherness, and it would make someone go again to a climate protest. Or if they see the video on social media, they think, damn, I should have been there. So there's that real kind of in the moment thing that can help activism. But then activism isn't just going to protest, it's things people do in their everyday life. So I think music can be there for all of the different things.
I quite agree with you, because if you listen to a powerful song, you wanna act, you wanna fight. It's just like the background song, like it's the soundtrack of a fight at the end of the day. What do you think, Claire? What's your perspective?
I think there's a bit of a distinction, and glad that you said when you were referring to activism being unusual, being connected to music, you said the industry, because there's the music industry, music culture, and the music itself. And Fay just described really well about how the music itself can actually inspire and activate a kind of mind-heart connection that leads then to action, is one thing. And then also the profile that means that you get the kind of media interest or the people's interest to connect to a cause. But then music cultures can also be a way of creating almost like little communities or countercultures even to what might be the mainstream. And this is how, for instance, AGF came to exist, because I was really into psychedelic trance in my late teens, and I'd go out into the woods around the UK and then around Europe and find like these other crazy like psychedelic hippie people. And through that culture, which was led by music, we then were getting really inspired about protesting against war, against animal rights abuses, but also for the climate. And this was in like the early 2000s. And it had been going for a long time before I came along as a teenager. You know? And so I actually see that activism and music, it's not a strange marriage. They go really hand in hand. Like if you look at the punk scene as well, you know, it's like music is actually quite a driver of activism, and it's not an unusual place for it to be. However, the way that music consumption and industry is presented now, I suppose probably the last 10 years, 20 years even, there's been much more of a marriage with corporations and international brands and music that didn't really exist before. And so I wonder if the perception even of the music industry for anyone who is 20 or under is quite different to anyone who's over 20, because normally it's the place of anarchy. But yeah, so that's making me ponder your question. As far as how to reach the audiences, though, I think it's really important to not be preachy and to not be telling people you can and can't do this, and not to be thinking that you're an educator. Because it's just not going to wash. Like actually, everyone's got valid points and perceptions, and what you need to be doing is just having way more fun that everybody wants to come and join you. And I think that that's again why music can be so effective, and music scenes in particular.
History between like music and activism. But I think for people with my age, like early 20s or something like that, there's just Spotify and these big platforms that you don't really see activism at all. You just see your favorite artists launching new albums like every 2 years or every year, but you don't really see what's behind that. So projects like yours really show people that artists like music and activism can be together and actually can like be a huge how do you say that in English? I'm sorry. Well, a huge and helpful opportunity to really make a difference. So yeah, thank you for showing people, so actually younger people, that there's been a connection, and there's gonna be a really big connection, and you are too working on that now.
And
And
also thank you to you for highlighting the other perspective, because that's actually blown my mind a little bit. Thinking about, because I've seen the progression. My first job, I think, after I left uni was new media manager in
mhm,
well, I was doing a number of different things, including AGF, but new media manager. And this was because we were moving all of the vinyl records
yeah.
onto these new things called iTunes. And it was like, oh, iTunes, what? It's going to be recorded in the charts. And then Spotify was brand new. And so kind of seeing a progression, and then there's
Yeah.
people in their 60s obviously who had a whole nother 2 decades on top of that. But it's good to have those check-ins from time to time, because we've all got quite different frames of references, and
Yeah.
so it's important to have these conversations together.
Yeah, well, my perspective is actually very new into this world. Well, I haven't presented myself. I'm Roxana. I'm from Fridays for Future, and I'm an activist. So, of course, I know a little bit more about activism, but that's not the case for most of the people. But I'm gonna say that actually activism right now is based on super young people. Like I see reunions from Extinction Rebellion or like Fridays for Future, and they're on their early 20s, so they are super young, and it's just blowing my mind because such young kids that normally they should be like, I don't know, hanging out with their friends, they are spending hours and hours uh, planning like demonstrations or like these huge movements, and it's just crazy to me. I really like that. So yeah, here I am, one of them. uh, should we move to the next question, because as you two said, you are working on like actually investing your time, your energy, and your connections with the music industry to activism. And what do you think it's like the main thing you are working on, like um I'm gonna say like reaching out to governments and talk to and make them really make changes through like really big movements, because Music Declares Emergency has like really such connections with top tier artists, and a Greener Festival it's actually giving a lot of advices and really changing how we see big festivals. So what's your main goal right now, like this year? What do you want, what do you plan to do?
Who's going first? Shall I go first? Okay, so I think our our key sort of focus is really to mainstream messaging on climate, and I want to say as well, the Fridays for Future movement is so important. And I think when people look back on this era in 10-20 years time, and they're all, it's like retro, and people are like thinking it was the best time ever because the kids were running through the streets making changes, and that's what people are going to really remember from this time.
Yeah.
So it's like culturally really important. But I think what we're doing is really trying to help shift, and this is alongside a lot of other things, but be part of lots of different movements and lots of different conversations who are shifting common sense.
Mhm.
Whereas probably like 5 years ago, no one wanted to talk about climate change.
Yeah.
Now it's like people have to talk about climate change, and they
Yeah.
talk about it daily. It's not everybody, but it's the work isn't finished yet. It's like there's still a long way to go with encouraging people and like giving permission for people who don't know anything about climate change to express themselves about how they feel about these issues, and to feel part of what's happening. I mean, I'm part of the climate movement, but I can imagine someone looks at these protests and thinks, I don't know enough to be part of this. And we're trying to really just spread the message that you don't need to know everything. It's about what's in your heart, and it's about what the future you want to create, and creating a positive future. So that's our kind of key goal. And then this year, I mean, we've set ourselves quite a big target because we're a small team, but we're trying to bring together a global or international to start off with, but lending towards a global collaboration and coalition of lots of different music and climate groups. So groups like the Greener Festival, there's people like K-Pop for Planet who are based in Jakarta.
Yeah.
There's Reverb in the US. There's all of these different groups. So we're trying to bring everyone, increase those conversations so that we have more sort of leverage, a louder voice with all of our expertise, because there's no two groups doing the same work. So there's like space for everybody. And I think we're all in the music industry. And in the music industry, there's this mindset where you're constantly in competition with everyone. And I think maybe this is a capitalist mindset where you have to get your message on the front of something or something else. And we're trying to unlearn that and just bring this collaborative feeling to all aspects of our work. So yeah, the global thing. And also I should mention, Music Declares Emergency is not just UK based. We've got groups now in France, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, Chile, and Portugal and Spain and the US are launching soon. So if anyone is interested in joining Music Declares Emergency Spain or any of the other groups, info@Music Declares. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can access it on our website, musicdeclares.net, but info@musicdeclares.net, and just say you want to get involved and we can help put people in the right direction.
Oh my God, thank you so much for sharing that. I already knew you, but now I'm going to be more invested.
Yes, amazing.
Then start a Music Declares Emergency for your country and
Yes.
get everybody to join it.
Thank you, Claire. See, teamwork already.
Always. And I wanted to say something else on what you said before I go into what we're up to that was related to collaboration and connection. What was it? It'll come to me later. Anyway, I'll park that one just over here. So we're quite, in the stuff that we do, it's always been quite kind of, I suppose you'd call it B2B. We were like quite focused on the industry side rather than on public facing campaigns. It permeates into the public just because the people that we work with are very public facing. But what we've been trying to do is to get the festivals and promoters, the artists, the team behind touring productions, agents, arenas, stadium venues, the ecosystem basically that houses music, live music. We've been trying to get everybody along the same line and singing from the same hymn sheet, and so that we can have essentially a systemic change through the industry itself. And that reminds me of what I was going to say, actually. You referred to the capitalist system where everyone's competing and tussling. I also refer to it as the patriarchal system.
Yeah.
Which is where we're essentially, in order to succeed, we need to tread down the people next to us, because it's like this pyramid whereby there's only a few winners at the top and everyone else suffers. And that's the global system that we're in. And it's the same for our environment as well as our society, which is why so many people are suffering or don't have access to the basics of what we expect to be a human right. It's why so many animals are suffering, so much of the environment is suffering, while a few are like licking the cream. And at the moment, we're reflecting that in the way that we've structured the music industry. And if the music industry, that's the home of music culture and music creativity, can't change that system and that pattern, almost like as a node that then is going to affect the macro system, you know, rather than waiting for everything else to change and then you slot in, show how it's done. Like, rather than pointing a finger and saying, this is all wrong, this is all wrong, demonstrate it. And then, like I said before, if you're having more fun, if you're having a better time, and everyone's like, oh my God, we're creating heaven on earth, then others will follow. it sounds
Yeah.
simple. Yeah, so that can be our mission for the year, actually. Heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth. I like it. I like how it sounds. Oh, thank you, Claire, because you just said something that I actually had on the script, because it's systemic change through actually changing the music industry, or like music culture, like inside, and then show people how you're doing it, how it should be done, a way that we can change our ways, and then change the world, like change the system. And I think that's so important, because I was reading, preparing myself for this talk, and I was thinking, yeah, actually New York Times, these big really big magazines are like actually pointing out that music industry could be the lead for systemic change, because you have, as just like I said, you have such big platforms, and if you change the way you two, like people from music industry, connect each other, if you two share a way that it's not like I'm better, I have bigger platform, but we can be better, we can change, then people are gonna follow that, and people are gonna see like, well, I'm having fun, I'm at festival, I'm really enjoying my life right now, while being conscious about something you're doing right, you know, like systemic change through music industry, through these projects. I don't know, but I find it quite lovely, I'm not gonna lie.
Great. I think festivals as well are a little bit of heaven on earth. They can be hell on earth as well. But they can be heaven on earth in the sense that when I went to my first ever music festival, I'd never known anything like it. Everyone was talking to everyone. It was like these barriers that we hold are just broken down, and there's sunshine and music, and you get all covered in mud, and you're dirty, and you don't care, you sleep in your clothes, and it's like, that's actually quite an eco-friendly weekend, you know, especially as Claire's organisation is helping get the festival to be green. But if you're planning a holiday, a festival in your own country is a really good option for that, because you're not, you know, you're living with the land for a few days and being very communal.
Yeah, it's a really important issue as well. Something else that you said earlier, it just reminded me, maybe actually Roxana, if it was in your introduction, that there's a real importance about giving people a space to come together as well. And it's not necessarily the message that you as a platform are giving. The platform itself, or the space itself where people can come together, is where ideas are united and galvanized, and where movements can start from. So especially when thinking about young people now, I'm always so glad when I hear that there are free parties going on under bridges that I don't know about. Everyone's like got their sound system and gone down there, because you know that that's when everyone's going to meet each other and be like, I'm really passionate about this, let's go and organize that, like down with the system. You know, and it's essential, because you have to keep on checking. And what I was concerned about with the last 2 years is people had been separated, but also we're like so into these. I mean, for the first 20 years of my life, or 17 years maybe, I didn't have one of these, whereas many people have just had them always. And so then, are people still coming together with that same covert planning of how to change it? You know? Or is everything under surveillance? I'm not going to get into that now, actually. That's a whole nother topic.
I think I'll carry on from Claire a bit of why we created these t-shirts, the No Music on a Dead Planet t-shirts, and we've got all these different designs. Some look like heavy metal t-shirts, there's ones that look like pop music, ones that are like indie, and the idea is that you see someone else, when you're wearing a Metallica t-shirt, you want the world to know you love Metallica, right?
Yeah.
You want some hot guy or hot girl, hot person to spot you and go, you're cool, you like Metallica, and then you have a conversation, and then whatever happens in your mind happens. So this is the idea with the t-shirts, is that you can wear in the same way you'd wear the band that you love, the artist you love, whatever you love on your shirt. You're showing, there's a knock on my door, I'm going to ignore it. You're showing that with climate and the planet. So yeah, it's a big one. Can I be 2 seconds? I'm going to answer my door. It's very
No,
unprofessional.
it's fine. No, it's fine. Imagine the police open up, please. Claire, you said something really interesting. Well, we should wait for Faye, but I just wanna like advance you the question I'm gonna make because I had a few questions about like festivals and touring because you said there's been 2 years with pandemic and everything with like the COVID-19. And now people are gonna come back to festivals, to tours. And Faye said that actually a good plan is to come to a festival near you, but some people don't, and they have to use a plane, or like maybe DJs that use a plane like maybe three times a week. Like, how do you stop? Well, how do you not stop? But like, how do you reduce these like super damaging flights? How do you like? I don't know how to extract this question. Um, what are the advice a greener festival gives festivals? Like, how do you change a festival? What do you do?
Well, that is a massive question. So I'm just going to come
Yeah,
back first to the artists traveling 3 times a
yeah,
weekend, for example. And I think that you can't really, like, at this stage, you can't just tell people, no, you can't do that. At some
yeah.
point,
No, you can.
we are going to be told that we can't do that. That is going to happen because the EU, for example, and all the other like nations and whoever it is that rules the roost at any point in time, the crisis is going to get worse and worse, and the quotas will get stricter and stricter. And so we need to find if at the moment, oh, to pay my bills and to be recognised as an artist in this scene at this level, I need to fly to 3 different countries in one weekend. That is not a sustainable business model on any level. It's not sustainable for your well-being or health. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the current climate. But it's also not sustainable in the long term because you're not going to be allowed to do it for long. So we need to find ways that we can make the business models work for the artists so that they're not put into a position of having to fly like that, because some people are choosing to for the lifestyle, but it's not that fun after a while.
Yeah.
You'd rather stick around at the after party at some point as well and get on another flight. Yeah, I think that also then comes down to the what we perpetuate and present as something that's aspirational. And at the moment, there's more and more artists that are calling out actually that you wouldn't want to aspire to have 32 trucks on the road, for example, or you wouldn't want to aspire anymore to be flying around to 3 countries on weekend because it's actually embarrassing. Knowing what we know, that's a really embarrassing thing to do now.
Shady things.
So we don't tell people not to do it, but guys, like, it doesn't look very good. And then, I mean, there are movements towards them because I'm not, you can't travel, don't fly anywhere. I mean, the most moving and I think healing experience that I've had in my life in a community has been from going to perform in Australia with a 50-ton fire-breathing spider from the UK and connecting with an Indigenous community there who then flew to the UK and connected with us. And that was obviously a lot of carbon emissions, but on a human level, to feel some degree of healing between Aboriginal people and people from the UK, that's like gold, you know, for a life experience. And there's so many other examples of why actually different parts of the world connecting is a good thing. And it's incredible actually that we have invented flying machines. You know, I mean, humans, we have done some really cool stuff. We're just doing it in a way that's not very good for us at the moment. So I think that air travel will become cleaner. It will become possible technologically at some point to be able to do flying without causing severe amounts of carbon that at the moment is critical for us. Whereas at the moment it is critical, so we need to make some decisions on our personal lives and on our work lives and on our business models, even if it's for the next 10 years until we work out how we're going to do it better. because we just don't have the luxury to go, oh yeah, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
Because
that's me talking, by the way. I'm sure there's a more kind of professional AGF line, but
because actually the industry, like, it should function in a way that ensure artists and actually their teams that make a good living while actually, like, working with what they love. So I'm sure a Greener Festival works on that. Like, you make your thing, you are a great artist while actually not killing the planet while doing that, because it's true what you said. uh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, please
I just
talk.
wanted to share. You just reminded me. So I do a lot of talks as well, and then I was invited to the festival of the Northern Lights Festival in Tromsø, which is in the Arctic Circle. And so instead of flying there, which I could have just gone, oh, well, it's going to take a really long time. Thanks to them, because they were willing to like help to work it out and also to cover the cost because it's more expensive. I was able to travel there by land and sea, which was like 16 trains, 4 buses, a 24-hour boat across 4 countries, with the risk of like COVID restrictions or being impounded somewhere and having Brexit as well. I was like, am I even allowed through these borders? But it's like you say, it's an adventure, it's an amazing journey. It makes it much more interesting to go slowly to that place, and then you can do your other work on the route if you need to, or if you're in the public eye, you could do like your fan base chatting while you're on your way to the next gig, or take gigs along the route. Everything doesn't have to be done at breakneck speed.
Yeah, we should introduce public transport to festivals. Like, please, like, public transport should be an essential to festivals. And I read on a Greener Festival, like your page, that you actually promote like public transport to be a thing. Like, please make people want to take a public transport to get there and to have fun.
I think that's something where also, and I know that also Music Players Emergency have been working on this, and many other groups, is where so we've recently in the UK had the Department of Culture, Media and Sports, so the ministry for our industry essentially, say that there needs to be minimum environmental standards for festivals. I'm like, well, hello, said that 15 years ago. But the interesting thing is to require a festival to be sustainable when they exist in a country or a local authority or a broader system that is not sustainable. It's like, do you expect us to just suddenly live on a different planet to everybody else?
Yeah.
So you need to actually have the infrastructure, such as a green electricity grid in your country, a public transport network that's accessible for everybody and doesn't cost an arm and a leg, so that they're just encouraged to get into their cars, an agricultural and food system that isn't destroying the land. And that's something that festivals can do their best, but I'm pretty sure it's not their entire job to do alone. There's some other people not pulling their weight in this system, but that's a kind of negative slant on it. We can actually work together and help to show, well, this is possible, let's work as a team, rather than pointing fingers, even though that's what I was just doing.
Well, thank you, Claire. And Faye, before you go to like open your door, I was actually gonna ask you about your T-shirt, because you actually do merchandising for Music Declares Emergency, and actually merchandising is a way that artists like really promote their music, and the production maybe. So, well, sometimes if you don't have like the possibilities to do it sustainable, it could be actually damaging. But a Music Declares Emergency, actually, your production is quite amazing, as I've read. Can you talk about how do you make your T-shirts? How is the process? Because I really like that T-shirt, honestly.
Great. Sorry. Great. Yes. So the reason musicians are making so many T-shirts and so many items, is artists like Rihanna have got whole lines of like underwear and makeup and all of this stuff. and she's probably not the best example of this, but you know, everyday bands, they're creating all of this stuff because the music is given out for free. No one's buying the music, right? So you have to do all this other stuff. I mean, musicians are musicians. The real artwork is the music. And yet you have to create all this other stuff to sell because what you're doing isn't being valued correctly. So there's this whole kind of bigger question about streaming and how it's valued, and music and how it's valued, and whether that's fair, and whether that's fair for up and coming artists and different levels. So that's the kind of background of this conversation. And I think a lot of artists travel, and the relentless touring, which, as Claire said, is not great for creativity, it's not great for mental health, it's not great for loads of different things, it's incredibly expensive. That's because people aren't buying music. People expect music to be free. So people have to do loads of shows to exist as a band, because a band or an artist works like a company, and your company has to keep going, like a limited company. So yeah, that was the backdrop to why musicians are doing all this extra stuff. So like, yeah, let's pay more money for streams, right? Let's find a way of which that works, and it's sustainable. But then on top of that, how do you do merch more green? Now, we thought long and hard about, do we do these shirts? Do we not? We were printing on old stock, which is something you can do. Take old T-shirts, print new designs on. There's a few bands like the 1975 who do that. To some extent, they also do new merch as well. But COVID hit, so there were no gigs. There was nowhere to be to print things. You had to just do things remotely. So we decided to create these T-shirts. But what we did was we found a merch company. In fact, they approached us. And so obviously they have a really sustainable production, manufacturing. So it's organic cotton, goes without saying. The rainwater for the cotton is rainwater. It's not sort of water taken from other people's land or, you know, draining other areas. It's renewable energy throughout the whole supply chain. So there's all this really boring stuff. But there's also a couple of really, really good things that are more interesting, that are more easy to remember, because the other stuff is just, you know, you can Google that. So the T-shirts are all made to order. So we don't have loads of stock sitting around. So what causes waste is things existing that aren't used. That's the definition of waste, right? So I've been in a band. I know how many T-shirts you get left over after a tour or after an album cycle. You have all of this stuff that no one wanted to buy, weird sizes, like the design that didn't quite work. And it's you put it in the bin, you know, it just goes straight to landfill. And it's a really big part of the problem with clothing is it's not being worn, it's going to landfill. So these ones are all printed to order, and there's loads of companies that do that. We use a company called T-Mill, Teemill, who are expanding at the moment to be more in Europe as well as the UK. So they print them to order on these lovely T-shirts, and so there's no wastage. People want the T-shirt, they get the T-shirt, they wear it. And then another important thing is at the end of the T-shirt's life, you can send it back to T-Mill because it's 100% cotton. So it can just go in the recycling machine. You can just chuck it in. You don't have to have any complicated processes to recycle. So they then make new T-shirts out of old T-shirts. So there's I don't think for one moment that everyone is going to send their T-shirt back, and you get store credit. You know, in a perfect world that would happen. It would be this beautiful circular system. But the option is there, you know, the option is there to be completely waste free with these. So that's why we decided to do it. And you can do a huge number of T-shirts and stuff like this. It is difficult for bands touring to have to not have the stock there, to not have it physically, but artists sell merch on their websites. You can do all the web merch like that, everything that they do to help support their art, but also their teams. All the teams need support, all of the band members, all the musicians who are hired in. It's a whole massive family, even if it's a solo artist. So all of those people can be supported by much greener merch. So there are definitely ways of doing it that don't include horrible fabrics and horrible, like, also factories where people are treated really badly. It's just a nicer process, and they're not any more expensive really, so it's good.
Yeah, because it's quite lovely to see your favorite artist wearing a music declares emergency a t-shirt. Like I've seen in Instagram, like a post of Billie Eilish, and then other people that I actually love, and it's like, oh my god, because it's true. If you see your favorite artist engaging with projects like this, you're gonna be invested. You're gonna search, okay, what's a music declares emergency, what's a greener festival, and then you're gonna see, because just like you said, Claire, now we have these phones that we can search everything. So being actually so visible with a t-shirt, it's like it opens a world to anyone that is interested. And I'm just gonna introduce something, because I just said I'm from Fridays for Future Barcelona, and actually there's a project that it's created by activists from Barcelona, from Fridays for Future Barcelona and Extinction Rebellion, and I'm just gonna play a video, and there's gonna be questions for you, Claire, and for you, Faye, that they are gonna be happy to be answered. Okay, so we should play the video.
Hello there, I'm Martí from Climate Sessions, an activism project dedicated to the production and broadcasting of ecological art. The project was born when Birch and I, active in Fridays and Extinction Barcelona, realized that a dedicated space was needed to consolidate a local scene of climate art, thus facilitating access to ecological culture and transforming consciousnesses. Since then, we have been recording artists with songs and choreographies which talk about the climate crisis. But we realized that even though we are improving the quality of the sessions, our reach is very limited and we don't know how to get to more people. In the same way, we have difficulty financing the rental of the technical material, and we realized that we could do much more if we had at least one person working exclusively on the project. Our questions then are, for a greener festival, how do you get recognition from institutions and large organizations? For Music Declares Emergency, how do you get in contact with top-tier artists, and how do you expand your reach and get followers? And for both, how did you approach funding to get to the point of effectiveness and impact in which you are right now? Thank you very much for your time.
Through the video. Have you read it?
Yeah, I could see. I could read everything that was being transcribed. How do you call it when words go along the bottom of the screen? I read the subtitles.
Yeah, the subtitles. Faye, have you read it?
I can see the questions. Yeah.
Okay, then maybe we should just ask you the questions. Like the first question is for a greener festival, and it's how do you get noticed and held by bigger institutions? Like how do you connect with like really huge festivals, and how do you make them listen, or maybe like just want to work with you?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a funny one actually, because we started 15 years ago, and the first thing one of the things that really helped was help from a person who was already connected to those institutions. Okay. And that in our case was Ben Chalice, who was my lecturer at university that I went to with my dissertation about festivals and the environment.
Yeah.
And said, I've done this, I need something to reference from the industry. You work in the industry, I've seen that there's things happening there. And he was like, no, nothing's happened yet. There's been some talk, but nothing's actually happened. So by the time I finished at uni, he was then like, okay, let me introduce you now to the International Live Music Conference, which is where we now organise our own conference. And he also was connected with Glastonbury, for example. Mm-hmm. And so that was one thing. And I'm mentioning that because although that was a very personal, specific situation, it just goes to show how important it is for those in the industry to really give a leg up to those who aren't. And so if you do have a platform or profile, then to be watching out for this and make sure that you're helping in any way that you can and making the introductions, because sometimes it can just take connecting with the right person and then they can introduce you to a platform. So that's one way. I think the other thing that made it really kick off at that point in time was the message that we had and what we were doing was quite unique. So there wasn't anybody else doing it. Most people, like, you know, green festivals, even my own lecturer at uni was like, there's not enough to write about on that. Like, don't do that. Whereas now there's entire courses about it. But in 2005, it wasn't a thing apart from in the counterculture that had been going on for decades. And so having something that's quite a unique thing. Then the other thing that really helped was that we weren't attacking the people that we were going into work with. So we weren't saying, you're doing everything wrong, we're going to come and tell you how to do it better. Or like, you know, we weren't threatening, not that they'd be threatened by us anyway at that point. Who are these kids shouting at us? Go away. But we weren't, we were approaching it in a way of, we've got some amazing ideas of how things can be done. You're doing some amazing things. There's some things that could be done better. Let's find them and work together on it. And then that kind of creates an open door and an open space. This is talking about my experience 15 years ago when I was in my early 20s, when we first started working with Glastonbury, etc., with this like passion project. It's still a passion project, you might have noticed. But also, I don't know if this is discouraging, but we just got our first full-time person.
Okay, we have a video.
I was like, who's that talking?
Production.
It's me.
I don't know what's going on.
Is somebody playing
hello?
YouTube in the background?
Maybe,
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's okay now. Hello over there. Okay.
Okay, cool.
To explain what happened if people watching it doesn't come out, we had the audio of like 15 seconds ago playing for a while, but it seems to be better now.
Yeah, I think it's, they just carried that like that. Okay, thank you, Claire. That was a bit scary, I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe that was a sign that I was talking way too much. I'm gonna let Faye answer her question.
I don't know either. It was Faye from her laptop. Okay, Faye, now it's your turn. Your question is, how do you reach top tier artists and how do you engage them and reach them and their followers?
Okay, great. So first of all, it's really, 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 really hard to reach top tier artists. So my first advice would be to live in the real world, you know? Okay, like live within, if you're a tiny group, it's, if I had £1 for every time someone said, can you just get Stormzy to do this? Can you just get Ed Sheeran to do this? And I'm not Stormzy or Ed Sheeran. If you're Stormzy's management, Ed Sheeran's management, you're going to get 10, 15, 20 requests every day. Yeah. So you have to say no to everything unless it's World Wildlife Fund or Global Citizen or something huge. So don't be disheartened, I think. But be realistic. Don't be disheartened if you get rejection from people, because it's not that your project, they wouldn't love your project. It's just because artists get a lot of asks, and if they spent all of their time doing that stuff, they would lose credibility because they're like the person who does everything. But they also wouldn't have time to do their music and do touring and create their merch because they don't get paid for their music. All of this stuff. So be realistic is my first advice. Second advice is to be really respectful of people's time. Be really clear in what you want them to do, and I think that's kind of it, really. Be humble. Don't go in demanding that you're going to expect these things, but keep trying and keep trying. If you get rejection, it doesn't mean your project's not good. I said that just before, but you have to have a thick skin. We say in English, I don't know if you say that in Spanish, but you have to accept rejection. Okay,
Yeah.
just accept it. It's nothing bad for your project, and just keep asking people in a really clear way. Sometimes if they say no and the conversation's open, you can ask why. Is there a reason you said no, and you can help understand. But I think if you're very, very honest with people, don't say you've got this huge thing going on if it's not. People can see that, and they can see you're not being honest. And if you want honesty from other people, then accept that as well. So yeah, be realistic, be really respectful, and be super clear about what you want people to do.
Yeah.
If you're emailing a manager or an artist, like, keep it short, you know, like, get to the point, keep it short, keep it respectful, keep it humble, and keep going, because you will find artists who want to support your project. And be really grateful for smaller artists who support them. And those smaller artists can grow and grow really quickly. So it's about working with people who are really enthusiastic, because there's power in all levels of music.
Well, I'm happy to say that I actually know people from Climate Sessions, and they are very enthusiastic. They are super hardworking people, and I hope you check out their social media accounts, because they are just amazing. And if you are in Barcelona, you just have to meet them. You're gonna love them, I'm sure of that. Thank you so much for giving them an advice. And I think we need to finish in about 2 minutes, just to say thank you. If you want to say something else. But yeah, I'm super grateful for all of your answers, from actually having this chat with you too, from your perspective, from your experience, because you have lived a lot. You're working a lot every day to actually make a change. And as a young activist, I admire you. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. So if you want to say something else.
Well, I admire you too, first and foremost. And I just say that if you want to get involved with the stuff that we're doing, for instance, we are always looking for assessors to go out into festivals all around the world, so to actually go and help them to implement all of the things that we're doing, and we have training for people to do that. There's also an organisation called Earth%, which is really good at bringing together people to almost like commit to bring funds into sustainability. So I think that it could, for the music industry specifically, so that could be a good platform for people to connect to, for artists to connect to. And obviously, music declares emergency. I'm going to let Faye say that though, but do get involved with that as well.
Great, yeah, thank you, Claire. And I want to take that job of going to festivals around the world. That sounds great.
Yeah, me too. Well, around the world.
So I would say we're doing a campaign week around Earth Day in April. So it's the 18th to the 24th of April, and we're inviting everyone, no matter where you are or who you are, to get involved with something, do your own activation. We're asking the whole music industry to come together. So if you want to be part of that, or you're interested, or you have an idea or an organisation like the one you showed us, it's info@musicdeclares.net, and I put it in the chat on the YouTube page. So yeah, do get in touch. We want to hear from you, and we're just going to get everyone together under the banner "No Music on a Dead Planet," because there is no music on a dead planet.
That's so true. I'm so grateful to have you too today. And yeah, I'm grateful for the people that are gonna listen, that are listening to us right now. And I don't know, just tell these people that there's a lot of projects coming. There's a lot of projects that are actually really doing a lot of things. So just be engaged with this project, be engaged with music, with your favorite artist, and just please don't fuck the world, please. We need to save it. you just not for the future, but for the present. Okay. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think we're done. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for speaking English with us. It's very appreciated.
You're welcome. My English is not the best.
It's great.